Who-dats. Welcome to the podcast you've been waiting for. Great perspective and exclusive interviews.
It's a hard job for those guys because it's happening fast.
The kind of Saints insight and fun commentary you won't get anywhere else.
We've got plenty of technology to speed things up.
It's time to kick off your Been There, Done That Saints podcast, where we hand it off to our host, Mike Nabors, and Super Bowl winning linebacker, Scott Shanle.
Proud of these guys.
Surprised a lot of people around the country, but what does this do for this football team moving forward now? A win against an opponent like this where you beat them twice, you take advantage of the NFC South, you're really in the driver's seat right now.
Well, here's the thing. We didn't surprise ourselves. I think we just showed what we're striving for and what we're capable of every time we step on the field. So one step at a time, stay humble, stay hungry. Still got a lot of work to do, but obviously this was a huge win for us.
The Dropkick Murphys. It's fitting because the Saints drop kick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the supposed flavor of the month in the NFL and the NFC South. Oh, so much to get to from the Saints' 38-3 win in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers. I am Mike Nabors. Welcome to another Been There, Done That podcast. I got to bring in my team. My team. This is going to be a fun one, my fellas. Oh, my goodness. Now, we thought the Saints had a great chance. So we'll get to predictions later where we're going to creep a little closer to producer Justin Thomas. I'm going to bring in Scott Shanle as well, my partner on this podcast. Shanle, I didn't want to be a prisoner of the moment, okay? We've had some time to digest this victory by the Saints. I'm going to say it, man. It's the most impressive win of the Sean Payton era. I'm going to say it. What say you?
I'm right there with you. I started thinking over the years, there's been a lot of impressive wins, but I think when you look at the matchup in this game with obviously Brady and Brees, and it was going to have a lot of eyeballs on it. And this was for the NFC South leader, and just so many things. And a lot of teams lost in the NFC that the Saints needed to lose, and now the Saints are the number one seed. So many things flipped just based on that one game, and the Saints played unbelievable. When you talk about starting fast and just burying a team and getting them out of their game plan from the word go, that was it. And it was so complete because they started so fast.
Absolutely. Justin Thomas, I hate to pick on you because you've been nailing picks. You were ahead of Shanle and I, but you're the only one of the three of us who predicted the Bucs. And you know what? I thought the Bucs had a great shot. I'll get to why I, again, thought the Saints would win this game. But how surprised were you with this game?
Man, I knew coming into this podcast, all I could think is I hope y'all are both good cooks because the amount of crow y'all are probably serving up that I'm about to eat now.
Wow.
Yeah, I was shocked. Like you said, Mike, I thought it could have gone either way. I thought the Saints had a shot going into that game. I was shocked. And I have to say, when you mentioned best game in the Brees Payton era, the only other game that this reminded me of that I think is close is that 2009 game versus the Patriots, where the Saints also showed on national TV how good they were. But that I was not expecting a game like that. I'll say that.
Shanle, you played in that 2009 game. You remember how Tom Brady was on the sideline. What do you remember about Tom Brady in that game when you guys were dominating him back in 2009? Did you see similarities in his demeanor in what you saw last Sunday?
Yeah, the one thing I remember from that game is our coaches had an outstanding game plan. We ran a defense that we really hadn't run much before, and a lot of teams don't really run. And I just remember seeing Brady and seeing him early in the game and seeing him confused. And I thought, wow, we have Tom Brady flustered and confused. And I knew we had a great chance to be successful that night. And just as the game wore along, he got more frustrated. And it's crazy how you can sense those things. You can sense when your opponent feels hopeless. And early in that game, it just steamrolled, and we just kept building momentum throughout the game. And you saw that the other night with this Saints team. They started so fast. The offense just boom, boom, boom. And all week long, you listen to how good the Buccaneers defense is. You listen to how great their front seven is. And when you go down the field and just score like that, it adds confidence. Then the defense comes out, 3 and out. Boom, they're getting great pass rush. You go down and score again. And just like that, now the Buccaneers have to abandon the run. It was the least amount of running attempts in NFL history, and a lot of that was based on how fast the Saints started and just got them out of their game plan.
To your point, Trey Hendrickson, who is pretty understated when he meets the media, man, he's talking all kind of smack to Brady, kind of tapping him on the helmet. I mean, the defensive line was all over that Bucs offensive line, which we said last week is brutal and extremely overrated. I think Brady's kind of bailed him out a little bit this year. But I'm looking at past victories. You know, they beat the Bills a couple of years ago, 47-10. They beat the Eagles 48-7. Another game that kind of pops up for me is back in 2011 when you guys destroy the Giants at home. They go on to win the Super Bowl. I know this is kind of a sore spot, but you know, you've been a part of some big ones, Shanle. So for you to say that this maybe is the best one of the Payton era, it just shows how well the Saints played.
Yeah, and I say that, and we all say that because Tom Brady's standing on the other sideline. You
Yeah,
know, if
yeah.
Tom Brady isn't standing over there, it's a different story because he adds magnitude to the game and the way the Buccaneers have been playing. But just going back to last week, the reason I picked the Saints to win, and you know, sometimes people accuse me of being too optimistic, but great teams find different ways to win, and this team has been finding ways to win without Michael Thomas on the field. And I thought once this team gets healthy, you're going to see it. I didn't expect it to be this fast, but you're seeing what the Saints can become. The reason I picked the Saints to win was the way Tampa Bay played against the Giants. I thought the Giants aren't a very good team. You're on a short week. I understand that. And yes, there are trap games, but great teams don't go from smacking the Packers, playing well against the Raiders, and then almost losing to the Giants. So fortunately for the Saints, they got a little bit of that carryover from the Buccaneers team. But I just think, you know, long story short, I think the Buccaneers matchup problems are some of the Saints' strengths. Their O-line, unless they keep a tight end in and block our defensive line, they're going to get eaten up, even if they face them again in the playoffs. And then lastly, the Saints' wide receivers against the Buccaneers DBs, it's a horrible matchup for them. And the Saints expose those matchup problems.
So much to get to. We're going to go next level in this podcast, too. Rich Eisen had some great interviews with the New Orleans Saints this week. Drew Brees talks retirement. We got to talk about Jameis eating the W's. Cam Jordan addresses that as well. I have a one-on-one with Demario Davis. You heard my one-on-one with Brees after the game. Back to Tom Brady before we move forward past this game, though, Shanle. You know, Tom Brady, I think he gets too much hate. A lot of haters out there. You know, he's maybe the best quarterback of all time. Always got to kind of pause with Drew Brees and covering him after all these years. And he has Giselle and all the rings, and I get it. You know, people are haters. They get jealous. I like Tom Brady. I've always appreciated his story, 6th-round pick, grinding it, you know, putting up with Belichick all those years. But when you're playing, and kind of back to that Trey Hendrickson thing, when you're playing against Tom Brady as a defense, I mean, does he talk much? Does he get quieter during a game when you're just beating him like that?
No, I think, you know, I don't really remember Tom talking a whole lot. He uses his passion and his competitive fire towards his own guys. I don't remember a whole lot of smack talk with him again with the defense. He's definitely not a Phillip Rivers who never shuts up and has some corny one take one lines. Some of the most corny trash talk I've ever heard. But still, Phillip, he's a good guy. But people have different ways of showing their competitive spirit. But I don't ever remember Tom talking directly to the defensive guys. He may say something if you hit him, and if you start talking to him first, he may say something back, but he saves that fire for his own guys.
You know, I love rewatching games on prime time and just seeing what they say and kind of their takes on certain plays. And I thought an interesting take on the defense in this game, and we kind of talked about it in my one-on-one with Malcolm Jenkins a week ago, Shanle, was Jenkins was saying, you know what, I'm still trying to kind of figure out my role on this defense. And the primetime announcers, you know, the Al Michaels, the Joe Bucks, the Aikmans, the Chris Collinsworths of the world, they get a chance to talk to Sean Payton and Drew Brees and a lot of the players the night before the game and get a lot of information they can use in the broadcast. And I used to do that in the preseason games. It's really advantageous. And they said that Malcolm Jenkins told them that he and Dennis Allen have really struggled because Jenkins' defense in Philadelphia was so much different than what they play in New Orleans. He's had to work with DA, who you call them. I didn't play. I shouldn't call him DA, Dennis Allen. But he's had to work with him and really kind of figure out his role in this defense and fine-tune that a little bit. And they're getting more comfortable every week. What do you think of all that? That was interesting to me.
You know, that was interesting to me too, because not to get too deep into X's and O's, but Jim Schwartz in Philadelphia grew up kind of under the Greg Williams tree. A lot of man, a lot of pressure, a lot of blitzing. And Dennis Allen was there with Greg Williams, and I see a lot of the same things we did. So I didn't quite understand why the defenses are so different unless those guys have adjusted some over the years. I just think, to me personally, I think it's more of Dennis Allen trying to find ways to help Malcolm at his age. And Malcolm is not the same player he was when he was 25, just like nobody is. He doesn't run the same way. So, but you're still trying to find ways for Malcolm to have an impact on the game because he can still blitz, he can still tackle as good as any safety in the league. There's a lot of great things he can do, but as players start to get older, you have to find ways to protect them a little bit. And I think the Saints are playing a little bit less man-to-man coverage because of that.
Yeah, he's clearly more comfortable the last few games. I have to ask you this, though. Playing defense in the NFL, playing defense your whole life, when you're beating up a team like the Saints were beating up the Bucs, and they get that cheap field goal late, what is the mood of the defense when that happens?
First of all, I mean, nobody wants to be shut out. I get it. But come on. You can't light up, kick a field goal and say, well, we didn't get shut out. And you know what? If I was an offensive coach, maybe I would do the same thing. But defensively, it stinks because you don't really get to have many shutouts over the course of a season. Or some guys don't get a shutout in their career. So it stinks because it's almost like having a no-hitter in baseball and then giving up a hit in the ninth inning. I mean, that's the equivalent of it. But those shutouts are special. You never forget games where you shut out an opponent in professional football.
That's a good analogy. It's almost like bunting for a base hit, just so you can get a hit against the pitcher. And my whole thing is, too, Bruce Arians said, well, if it was a more manageable fourth down, we would have gone for it. No, you wouldn't have, Bruce. That's the same lie that you told when Tom Brady had no play and Antonio Brown getting signed on your football team. Stop lying, Bruce Arians. You just want to get points. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think the Bruce is trying to save face. But after last week's loss, and you and I kind of talked about it a little bit before the podcast, I think it's time for Bruce Arians to start getting more involved in what they're doing down there because it almost seems like he's a semi-retired, standing over there on the sideline. Tom, what do you want to do? Byron Leftwich, what are you guys going to do? I think Bruce Arians is a good coach. He needs to get more involved in that team and get them back on track for them to have any success.
I'm telling you, man, Sean Payton owns the Falcons, and he owns Bruce Arians. 4-0, and Tampa Bay Tom Brady, 7 interceptions this year, Shanle, 5 by the Saints. That's crazy.
That is crazy. And those stats, when you look at those, they all add up. And that's why you get the win-loss record you do. I think the Saints, there are so many numbers when you dive into it that kind of don't make sense for where the Saints are win-loss wise. But the one thing this team continues to do is not turn the ball over. And I think, was it last year, they were on a historic pace of not turning the ball over. If this team continues to do that, they're going to be hard to beat. And the defense needs to start getting more takeaways.
Absolutely. The one thing I liked after the game, we'll get to eating the W's and what Cam Jordan thought about that. I asked Brees about Jameis after the game, and he just smiled. And he was saying, I heard in another interview, he was kind of whispering to Sean Payton, hey, let Jameis throw. Let him throw one. So they were loving that. But what I liked about this football team is afterwards, Shanle, it was a lot of, hey, man, that was good, but we got to get better. Here's what Demario Davis said, one of the leaders of the Saints defense after the game to me in my one-on-one.
What does a complete game like this do for the defense moving forward now?
I think it just solidifies, our identity. We know who we are. We know what our standard is. You take a game like this and you come back in and you prepare and you continue to build. It's a couple things in there still that we can correct and we can do better. We want to continue to be an ascending team. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and we want to be building down the stretch. And I just think a game like this just kind of solidifies what we already knew what we could do.
Ascending team. I've heard that somewhere else before. Oh, yeah, Drew Brees says that quite frequently, doesn't he, Shanle?
Yeah, and it sounds like Coach Payton talking in the meetings. I've heard it for a lot of years. It's not about how you play in September. It's not you want to jump out to a fast start, but an ascending team is playing their best football come November and December and when it matters most. That's an ascending team. It's not peaking in September and October. And that's the one thing about this team that was kind of the silver lining when they were winning ugly is you haven't seen them play their best football, because nobody can play their best football in September and maintain that level all the way through January. Because, like DeMario said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You don't get there in a hurry. And those teams that can find that peak level of play at the right time, which is November and December, you have a chance to do something special. And so that's the most encouraging thing about the Saints team, is they are ascending at the right time.
You know what, you mentioned Sean Payton. One of the things I appreciate about him, and the reason I thought the Saints would win this game, and I said it on Tampa media all week long, is they're not the underdog too often. And when they are, it plays right into his hands. And this is what's great about Sean Payton, Shanle, and you know this. He's dancing after the game. He's dancing. He's stoic in the press conference. He knows when to work hard and play hard. You know, there's accountability. Ask Michael Thomas. Ask everybody in that roster. There's accountability on this football team. But you know what? When you get a big win, he'll dance with you too. A lot of head coaches, it's one or the other. You don't get the whole platter. With Sean Payton, man, you get the whole platter, Shanle.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a little bit jealous, because we certainly didn't get the full platter when we played. You know, we had the rough exterior, we had the tough old man who wanted to lay down the law. And now that our little brothers are growing up, they get the old man who doesn't want to do anything or discipline them. They get the nice new car. But Reggie and Vilma and I, we get on the chat, we kind of joke like, man, we didn't see this, Sean. We didn't have this, Sean, when Sean was trying to build the foundation. But it's fun to watch. It's fun to see him have that much fun. He's earned the right to have that much fun. And those guys, they love it. It's a different era. And I love that Coach Payton has the ability to adapt to the guys he's coaching. It's different now than it was in 2006 and 2009. It's different in 2020. And I love that he has the ability to adapt to those guys. And they work hard and they play hard. And that's fun to watch.
That's interesting to me. Do you think it changed in 2017 after the 3 straight 7-9 seasons when they started to have success with the young players? Is that where you saw the change?
I think so. I definitely think when they got that draft class, when it was Kamara and Lattimore and those guys, and you had all these young guys coming in and playing well and them winning games, I think that changed Coach Payton. I think that changed him. He was having fun with them, and it's easier to have fun. It's easier to dance in the locker room when you're winning games. No one's going in there to dance when you're losing and you're 7-9. So that was the turning point for him.
What's the most excited you saw him get after a win? Like, I mean, he wasn't dancing after you beat the Patriots in 2009, was he?
No, he wasn't dancing, but I remember a lot of it wasn't dancing. We didn't have the music and the lights and everything they had going down in the locker room, which looks like a lot of fun. It was a hyped up Coach Payton. It was his post-game speeches were animated, and I can't use the same language he would use, but he just had a different way of talking post-game, and you could tell he was excited and proud, and it was always on to the next one. Let's keep this thing moving.
Okay, to finish this conversation, because I love getting old stories from you, when you and Reggie Bush and Jonathan Vilma chat about the new Sean Payton, out of the old school guys, Shanle, would you be dancing with camera phones in the locker room? Could I see Scott Shanle on social media dancing after a big game in 2009?
After the Patriots game, you might have saw Scott Shanle dance, but
Nice.
that was one of the better victories. You know, that was probably a top 5 win, because that game against Tom Brady and the Patriots, we knew we had a chance to do something special. So there was a lot of happy moments after that game. But to answer your question, Mike, not many times would you have seen all 58 out there dancing. I would have been in the background watching and laughing.
Me too, brother. I'm an outgoing guy, but I'm a horrible dancer unless I maybe have a few beverages or something like that. You know, we mentioned this at the top. We had the boys are back by the Dropkick Murphys. Boy, the boys were back on offense. I mean, you had Michael Thomas and my man Taysom Hill, Shanle. I mean, are you more of a believer in Taysom Hill being the future quarterback after this game? Come on.
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
Mike, nothing he does will have me believing he is a future franchise quarterback. What Taysom Hill is a hell of a football player, and I will never take that away from him. But no, it's great to see Taysom getting involved in the offense, getting it rolling, because they're going to need him. They're going to need him at some point. It's an element to the offense that's hard to stop when it's working.
You know, I was watching the replay and I was thinking of you, Taysom Hill. To me, you know, I've always thought of this comparison, but Chris Collins was brought up to Tim Tebow. He dropped Tim Tebow in the comparison, and it made me wonder, you know, Tim Tebow, I think, could have done a lot of the things that Taysom Hill's doing, but that's kind of his niche right now. But here's my thing, too. In early part in the season, I was kind of scratching my head with Sean Payton a little bit because he wasn't throwing the ball. I think if you allow Taysom to throw early in a game, it kind of opens up the game plan for him and keep defenses guessing. Do you agree with that? Maybe let him throw a little bit early instead of just going in there and running on third down or something.
Yeah, I think they tried to use his arm strength a few times and just take deep shots, but I don't want to turn this into a Taysom Hill segment or a hating segment because I love Taysom as a football player.
I know.
But I think that's all you need to know. When he comes in, why does he never throw the ball if he's a great quarterback? And I just think there's a reason why he doesn't come in and throw the ball very much. But there's definitely certain plays he could come in and throw easy passing routes and probably should.
How good is this offense going to be? You got Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, man, they're just kind of putting their toe in the pool right now against the Bucs. I mean, you didn't need those guys full throttle, but the fact that they're going to get more comfortable, Mike Thomas needed a game under his belt. I like what he said after the game. He seems like, I don't know what all goes in there. We've heard all kinds of things about maybe he wants to get traded. That hasn't been substantiated or anything. But I like that Mike Thomas seems to be kind of happy. He's dancing in the locker room after the game. But this offense, man, if they can stay healthy, it's going to be fun to watch.
No question. This offense, and that goes back to the point I was trying to make earlier about winning games, just finding ways to win games, whatever you need to do until you get everybody back. Because Emmanuel Sanders missed games, Michael Thomas, Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, elite player. You're winning games without him. Now those guys are back. Jared Cook hasn't really been a huge part of the offense yet. Alvin Kamara has been carrying the load. So the sky is the limit for this team. They are still the same team that everybody had picked going to the Super Bowl and possibly winning the Super Bowl. They just haven't been on the field or been healthy, and now we're finally getting to see that team.
Absolutely. We're going to get to the Drew Brees and the W's, but I had one more question. Now, we're going to look ahead to the Niners here, and Sean Payton's going to have to earn his money because I think this is the ultimate trap game, Shanle. And I know this team wants to ascend and all that stuff, but they know how banged up the Niners are. I mean, they don't have Garoppolo. They don't have a lot of key cogs on defense. Is this kind of a trap game?
It is a trap game. No, I still don't think that the 49ers will win the game, but anybody can win the game in the NFL. It's just when you look at this 49ers team, it is by far not even close, I should say, to the team that you saw last year in the Super Bowl or the team that came into the Superdome. They have so many injuries. So many different faces are going to be out there Sunday. But the reason I give the 49ers a little bit of a chance is because of Kyle Shanahan. I think he's a fantastic coach. I think he is one of the best play callers in the NFL. And he will find a way to put his guys in a position to have a chance. Now, he's down a lot of guys, and that'll probably be the story of the game. But Kyle Shanahan will give this team a chance to compete.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get to some interesting topics that I heard nationally. It's to me always, everybody's jumping on the media. Nobody predicted the New Orleans Saints and the Bucs, the new flavor of the month. And a lot of media were kind of backtracking and complimenting the Saints this week. But an interesting interview Rich Eisen did. We'll get to Cam Jordan in just a second. But Drew Brees on a number of topics. But he asked Drew Brees about retiring. Is he going to maybe reconsider because this is a crazy COVID-type season? How do you approach your decision about this being your last year? Here's what Drew Brees told Rich Eisen.
I don't think I can live in the moment anymore. That's what I'm really just being in the present and taking it. Just the same mindset I've had the last couple of years. I mean, honestly, I haven't taken any year for granted. Since 2017, for that matter, I've looked at each year like this could be my last. And so I'm going to treat it as such.
He's got the TV deal pending. But I tell you, I wonder if the real good news that came out of that Bucs beatdown over Brady and Tampa Bay, did that put the thought into Drew Brees' head, Scott Shanle, that, you know what, maybe this shouldn't be my last year?
I brought up the same point, and before I get to my point, what the heck was with Rich Eisen's weird little laugh there? That was weird. That was creepy. Okay.
He just wanted to make sure. He just wanted to make sure he got in our podcast. But anyway, go ahead.
I guess. Yeah. So no, Drew. A couple weeks ago, when he was playing and rolling and was starting to overcome some of the national hate that I didn't understand, I sat there and we were in the CST studio. And I said to my buddy Victor Howell, I'm like, what if Drew plays another year? And it was the first time I thought, he's going to have a hard time deciding whether or not he should continue to play because he's still playing at a high level. And I know January is a long ways off, but it's a legitimate question. He's going to have to decide. First of all, he's got a year left on his deal with a lot of money. And if he's still playing well and being effective and they're winning, does he walk away from the game? Maybe if he wins the Super Bowl, does he say, okay, I won another one. It's time to walk away at the top like John Elway did? Or does that just motivate him to come back and try to win another one?
And here's the thing, too, Shanle. I think a lot of it depends, and this is a big reason he came back, on the core of this football team. Who are they going to lose? Who can they keep? I still think they can be a decent team. Mickey Loomis is going to have to do his magic, but he's been doing it for many years. But yeah, I just, I thought it was almost a foregone conclusion. But boy, so many things have happened since I've thought that. I mean, you had COVID, you've had, the transformation of what's happened in the NFC South. And I still feel like, we're not done seeing Brees and Brady this year, but we'll get to that in just a second. But, it's a very interesting decision in so many levels, and we'll see how it plays out. But I think the way he played against, and he passed Tom Brady again for touchdowns. We've talked about that all the time. Those guys, both of them want that record big time.
I was just going to say, Mike, those two are going to have to make a deal together and say, if you leave, I'll leave. I'm serious. Like, they're so competitive. Which one of them is going to walk away and just be like, okay, you can have it? I don't see either one of them willing to do that. So maybe they'll both walk away from the game at the same time. But I just want to bring up the point you were talking about Mickey Loomis. He always finds a way to work the salary cap. This coming up year, if he can work the salary cap and maneuver money around, he will be general manager of the year. I'm telling you. I saw a stat where the Saints right now, going into next year, are $68 million over the cap.
Ouch.
That is one of the highest numbers ever in NFL since they started salary cap. They're going to have to restructure a lot of contracts. Some guys are going to have to be let go. It's going to be a different team next year for sure.
Well, here's the thing. If Brees wins it all, I think he definitely retires. No doubt about it. But if they get close, it's going to be interesting. I still think he retires either way, but boy, the way he's playing and the way they're dominating the Bucs, it makes that decision very interesting. Okay, before we get to more likely, I've been looking forward to this. Jameis Winston. I don't know. I knew Jameis Winston some way, somehow would make a mark this year, and he did. He didn't play that much, little mop-up duty. I asked Brees about it after the game. He was all smiles, and, they love getting Jameis in that game. The way Sean Payton is competitive, you knew that was satisfying for him. But on NBC, they're interviewing Drew Brees. He does eating the W's, man. Something that's really not a great part of his resume. The pregame chant, if you hadn't heard, when the Bucs played the Saints a few years ago, Jameis wanted to get the troops fired up. We're going to go eat some W's. And Deshaun Jackson's looking at him like, what the hell are you talking about? It wasn't a good moment for Jameis. But he's playing the Bucs. The Saints win big. He does eating the W's. Here's what Cam Jordan said about it. Then I'm going to get Shanley's take.
You can't hide from it. You have to embrace it if you're Jameis, And as a teammate, I do nothing but support, my brother in arms. So if my guy eats a dub, I say he ate a dub. I would love to if he eats a dub every week and we're winning every week. Let's go.
All right, Shanley. We all love Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan is basically saying, as long as we're winning, that's funny. If we're not winning, that's stupid as hell.
Cam, I love Cam, but Cam, I completely disagree with you, dude. Jameis Winston should not embrace that. He should, after it happened 2 years ago, or what I think it was 2 years ago, he should have never brought that back to the forefront of social media ever. Like, that was one of the worst things you ever did, Jameis. Now you're getting to sit in the witness protection program a little bit, learn from Drew Brees, and then you go on national TV and bring it back?
Yeah.
What? There are certain things you bring back. This is not one of them. You make everybody forget you ever did that. And I kind of cringe and look down and kind of tap my forehead, my fingers like, Jameis, what are you doing, man? Don't bring that back. Don't put that back with your name.
What does Sean Payton think of that? You know Sean Payton well. Does he laugh at it? Does he shake his head? What does he do?
In this situation, I think Sean probably feels the same way. Like, that don't tie the eating the W to your name. Like, get rid of that. Just like we're trying to get rid of you turning the ball over and get rid of that and trying to get the best version of Jameis Winston. Eating a W is not the best version of Jameis Winston. Please drop that, put that away, and don't bring it back.
Do you give him any credit for laughing at himself and owning it?
I would have given, yes, I gave him credit 2 years ago when he did it. He should have laughed it off, but that should have been put in the past. I would have never brought that back up. You should have no reason to laugh it off again because you shouldn't have done it. So I don't know why he thought to bring it up. I know it was a big win and it was against Tampa Bay and it was a great moment for him and he did it, but I just don't know. That's my personal opinion. Just don't bring stuff like that back up.
I heard a lot of sports talk in Tampa this week. One of the best callers called in and said, well, at least Jameis would have had 3 touchdown passes, but he would have had 3 picks too. With that said, Justin, you know what time it is. Justin, we'll bring you back in for more likely. It's more likely time. 3 hypotheticals. You said we're going to make you eat crow. I gave you props before I said that you picked the Bucs to win this game. So I'm bowing down to your greatness and predictions, which we'll get to in just a second.
I appreciate it.
But yeah, well, let's do more likely though. And I wanted to kind of say this for more likely. More likely, are the Saints and the Bucs going to play for a third time this year? And if they do, how do you feel about that game? I lead off with Justin Thomas.
Unless the Bucs have a total meltdown, and I don't see that happening. I think they're a really good team, and Tom Brady, I just don't think is going to allow that to happen. I do see them potentially meeting each other in the playoffs. I do think if that is going to happen, it's going to be in New Orleans because the Saints will win the division. I think if it happens again, look, the Saints have swept teams before when they've played 3 times. I know they did it with Carolina a couple years ago, and then they beat them in the postseason. So I definitely think the Saints, if they can keep things rolling, I definitely think they will be able to beat up on the Bucs one more time. But I will say after this loss and the Bucs hearing about it, they're going to be out for revenge. So it's going to be a more competitive game, definitely.
Justin Thomas had no idea what I was going to ask him, and he's rolling off stats like a champ. Boom! Just keeps on rolling there. All right, Shanle, are they going to meet again? And if they do, what do you think?
I think they're going to meet again, but based on the way the playoff seeding is right now, I'm saying the Saints are going to win the NFC South, and I think they're going to have a chance at the number 1 seed based on their remaining schedule. So if you look at it from that perspective, the Buccaneers, even at the 5th seed, are probably going to play a game and then play another game, so they wouldn't meet until the NFC Championship. But I would definitely worry about this Bucs team, and I know it sounds crazy after what we just witnessed, but I think that game was kind of an aberration as far as I don't think the Saints are going to come out and jump out to 28-0 before you even know what happens. I just think that doesn't happen very often in the NFL. That changed everything for the Buccaneers. They had to just throw the ball every play. That is not their strength if they can't just line up and run the ball and keep you off balance. So it's a team I would worry about. It's a team that I definitely think could beat the Saints, but I think I would still pick the Saints because I think they're a better team, top to bottom. That's just plain and simple.
I do too. All things being equal, healthy, and all that moving forward. I agree with you. I definitely think they're going to play again. And I just have the feeling that this is one of those seasons where, man, they have their number. And I'm not one to gloat at all. I'm not. I mean, we like to have fun on this podcast, but I really do think they're a better football team just all around. I mean, we talked about that Bucs O-line. I know we mentioned earlier in the podcast. Even with Ali Marpet, they're not very good. They're not.
No. And Mike, you were on it from – I'll give you credit. You talked about it before anybody, even when they just signed Brady, and you said, hey, Brady's going to Tampa Bay, but that O-line is not good. So you were all over it, and it's been the same story since. But I just think with this Buccaneers team, they're going to have to find a way to not let one bad loss to the Saints roll into more than just one loss.
Yeah, I love what the Saints D-line's doing, and no offense, and I give them full props, but I'm looking at my door, and there's a doorstop there, and it kind of reminds me of Donovan Smith because he's awful. He's awful. And they say he's durable. Well, he shows up, but that doesn't mean much to me, so I agree with you there. All right, man, so many great numbers in that Bucs-Saints game or Saints-Bucs game. More likely, what's your favorite number, okay? The fact that Brees hit 12 different targets in that game, 11 in the first half, the fact that they only rushed the ball 5 times, and I got to count the Blaine Gabbert kneel down, so really it's only 4, or the fact that Jameis Winston had a better efficiency rating than Tom Brady. Which more likely is the best number, Justin Thomas, that kind of stands out for you in that crazy Saints game?
Well, I don't think any Saints fan would be surprised that Drew threw it to 12 different receivers. I mean, he's pretty much done that his whole career. He's known for spurting the ball. I think I saw that somewhere. I don't know if it was QBR or what other metric it was, but Tom Brady had the 5th worst QB rating, I think it was, in that game after his backup, Blaine Gabbert, when he came in. So that to me is hilarious. But I had never in my life thought I would see a game where a team ran, essentially, like you said, taking out the kneel down. A team ran 4 times, and that's it in a game. That to me is absurd. I don't know if we'll ever see something like that happen again. I just thinking about that, how many times they had to throw the ball to only allow them to, or, versus them only running it 4 times. That's just insane. I don't know if we'll see something like that again, especially in this day and age where everyone can throw the ball.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's like the nation was like, wow, Drew Brees is throwing to 12 different guys. That's amazing. You know what? He does that almost every week, close to that, like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, it's amazing what he's done. So, yeah, that was an unbelievable stat. Shanle, so many great numbers in this game. Which one stood out for you?
I would agree with Justin. That was an NFL record, so I think that speaks for itself. Team not running the ball just speaks to how fast the Saints jumped out. But even though the Saints jumped out that fast, Byron Leftwich, you still have to run the ball some, or otherwise you're going to get a 43-year-old quarterback killed.
Yeah,
and that's what happened in the game.
Absolutely.
Tom Brady was so antsy; he didn't even keep his eyes downfield on his receivers. He was looking at the pass rush. And that was the story of that game. But the one I wish I could select was Jameis Winston. I wanted to see Jameis play more. When they got up, I wanted to see Jameis play the whole fourth quarter. I was sent text like, come on, put Jameis in. I want to see him throw the ball. I mean, we had no preseason games to watch this guy play football for the Saints. I want to see if he can play and if he's a possible replacement for Drew. And we saw him throw one pass to the flat and then eat a W after the game. That's all we got out of him.
You just wanted to see Jameis because you're a Taysom hater, Shanle. Come on, admit it.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I don't think Taysom's the heir apparent, I want to see the other guy who possibly could be. Otherwise, I got to write Jameis off.
Well, before I get to the last question, if Jameis throws a touchdown pass, or heaven forbid, he jumps over the pile and they just rub it in, does he eat the W's in his celebration in the end zone?
Yes.
Oddly enough, Mike, I would have liked to see that more than the post game on camera. Hey, let me bring this up. If he would have scored helicopter John Elway style in the end zone, looked over to the sideline and ate the W, I think I would have loved that.
It's almost like, to me, I love watching Johnny Manziel play college football. He's one of the most exciting players I've ever seen. Would I want to hang out with Johnny Manziel? Probably not. But it's entertainment. Sports is entertainment, and stuff like that entertains you. So, yeah, absolutely. All right, speaking of entertainment, I try to kind of mix it up on More Likely. I talked about Tom Brady, and, we've talked about the records. I'm going to take Brees out of this question because we would all say Brees probably. But it doesn't have to be beer. But if you could hang out and have a beer with one of these guys, who more likely would it be? Would it be Tom Brady? Would it be Peyton Manning or Brett Favre? Who would you like to have a beer with? If you could have a beer with him, kind of get the best stories, get to know him better. Who would it be? Tom Brady, Tom Patami, Peyton Manning, New Orleans Zone, or Brett Favre, who I'm sure enjoys beer? Yeah.
I don't know. This is kind of like the question last week. To me, this is easy.
Really?
I would pick Brett Favre. He just
really,
yes, I've seen him do interviews. He just seems like someone who doesn't take himself seriously. He's funny. He knows how to have fun. He's got a ton of stories. I'm sure. I mean, obviously, when he was younger, he would goof around a lot and do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. I think Tom Brady, to me, of the three, seems the most serious. Peyton would probably be the next one I would pick. He would probably be the the next more fun, but. Brett Favre, no doubt. I think he would be like one of the best days to hang out with him.
I'm looking at the time of this podcast, and it's almost at 38 minutes. Just saying, just kind of bring this full circle. 38's a big number for the Saints this week. Shanle, of those three guys, maybe you've had beer with some of them. I don't know, but who would you most like to have a beer with?
All three pretty interesting characters. I think I would pick Tom Brady. I know Tom comes off as kind of corny and a little bit boring, but I feel like there could be a lot more conversation throughout. If you gave me a time limit of 60 minutes or 2 hours, I think there'd be a lot more conversation with him than the other two. I think Peyton Manning has done a really good job entertaining people. You saw the SNL or Saturday Night Live when he did that. I think he's pretty funny. I just don't know if we could hold conversation or talk about different things for 2 hours. So basically I'm saying I think Tom Brady, there's more depth that we could have conversations. And Brett Favre, I don't know. I don't know how long I could talk to Brett or what we would talk about. I don't know. I look at Brett Favre a little bit different from this perspective. I heard in Green Bay he had his own locker room and didn't go to the locker room with the other guys. I hate that. I don't like that about certain guys when they do things like that because it says I'm better than you. So I think I've always kind of looked at him different since I found that out.
Well, I'd definitely pick Brees if he was on this list because Brees, like Brady, who I'm picking, first of all, I want to see Justin drink a beer with Brett Favre. I just want to line the cameras up there and record the audio, and that'd be a podcast in itself.
I have the image right now, Mike. I have Justin and Brett out there in their Wrangler jeans, white T-shirts, tossing Frisbees to their dogs.
Love it.
Oh,
We
man.
kind of slow-mo the video and everything. Yeah, it'd be perfect. And I'm not being a homer.
With their copper fit braces on their arms.
Exactly. But see, God, man, this is great stuff here. We have to make that happen.
Oh,
Oh my God. I just can't think of two more, different human beings than Brett Favre and Justin Thomas. But that's a whole different story. Here's my thing with Brees and Brady and how I kind of put them in the same box here. We kind of know Favre and his warts. We kind of know Peyton Manning. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. One thing I've always appreciated about Brees, and I read about this more after you guys won Super Bowls. Body language is important to him. You rarely see Brees get real irritated on the football field, but he's human, and he gets irritated. I love to have a beer with him and get to know that side of him. Not that he gets irritated, but just stories and things we didn't know about him. And the same with Tom Brady. I've always heard stories when Tom Brady was at Michigan and a young player with New England, he was great at like chugging beers. Like that's one of his talents. Like he can throw down beers pretty good. And I don't really care about that, but I think there are a lot of haters of Tom Brady. I've always defended him. I've heard he's a great teammate from so many former players, and you've heard that, Shanle, from guys who came over from New England and you were teammates with the Saints. I just think there's more to Brees and Brady that we haven't seen compared to Favre and Manning. Does that make sense?
I would agree with that. And the one thing about Tom Brady is, you're right. You allude to some of the players he's played with have speaking him in high regard. I've never come across a player who played with Tom Brady who said anything bad about him. Not one player. They've all talked about his humility, his competitive fire. There's a lot of the same parallels between him and Drew Brees. And I just think you've won all these championships. You have the supermodel wife. You have all these different things going on. And yet you are down to earth and you're humble. I think it says a lot about him and really a lot about the way he was raised. If anybody's seen him interact with his mom and his dad and things like that, it's pretty special. And I think he's just a good person.
Peyton Manning shut out him more likely. How about that? Favre gets a vote. Brady gets 2 votes. Peyton Manning, nada. All right, let's move on to predictions. Sorry, Justin. Shanle has tied you. You picked the Bucs. Shanle picked the Saints. I picked the Saints. And 8 games left. We got a race here. Justin, you're 6-2. Shanle, you're 6-2. I'm 5-3. The Niners are coming. I'm just wondering if any of us are going to pick the Niners. But who's going to win this game and what's the score?
All right, look, the Saints have the second longest win streak in the NFL behind the Steelers. I think they're going to keep that win streak going. I know this on paper seems like a trap game, but I just think the Saints – right now, they got all the pieces that were missing back. Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. I think they're going to continue. It's at home. You had last year's loss still probably, that bad taste in their mouth. I think they're going to want to come out and prove, look, last week wasn't a fluke. We are a really good team. I think they're going to win. I do think it'll be closer. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like the Bucs, but I think it'll still be enough to prove that they're a good team. I'm going to go with, let's say, 38-24.
Why'd you pick 38?
Why?
It's kind of sentimental because of last week.
I just feel like they're good enough to score at least 5 touchdowns.
Kidding. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I guess you're right. It was last week's score.
I did pick 38 last week, by the way. I didn't predict the Bucs would get. I predicted the Bucs would get 35, not 3. We were all in the ballpark. I mean, Shanle had 35-31. Shanle, what do you think about this Niners game?
I think they're very well coached. I just don't think they have enough bodies. There are so many injuries. And every day I see something, it's another 49er out. Raheem Mostert now I think is supposed to be out. Now Deebo Samuel, the wide receiver, who's a really good player, gadget guy, reverse guy, is supposed to be out. I have no idea who's even going to play quarterback for him. I just think they don't have enough bodies. And it's not a reflection of how they coach, but it's definitely not the same team we saw last year that looked like they could have a couple Super Bowl opportunities. I'm going to go with the Saints. Even if the Saints don't play as well as they did last week, I still think they win. I'm going to go with 35-10.
35-10. Nice. Yep. Defense steps up once again. I think that it's going to be kind of a lesser week for the offense. I don't know why. I just feel like they're not going to light the scoreboard up like they did against the Bucs, which means, of course, they will light the scoreboard up. I'm going to go 27-14. I think they're going to be a little sluggish, but they're definitely going to win this football game, no doubt about it. And boy, Justin doing the research again, the winning streak is impressive for the New Orleans Saints, the way they played football. And you look at the schedule down the stretch, Shanle, before we say goodbye. I mean, I got to put this one up on a tee for you. They have the Falcons twice. They have the Broncos. They have the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Vikings, and the Panthers. Not a lot of heavyweights on that one. The Falcons are kind of making some noise. Are you worried about the Falcons coming up at all?
I am for this reason. And for whatever reason, the schedule makers gave us Atlanta at the end of the season, just like last year. And in the last 2 years, Atlanta started off really slow. But they're one of those teams that you look, okay, they got a franchise quarterback. They have Julio Jones, who you always worry about. They have Todd Gurley, who's playing pretty good for him this year. All first-round picks throughout the offensive line. They have enough talent to get you. If you're not paying attention and you show up and you think you're just going to roll the ball out there, Atlanta definitely has enough talent to get you. So it's one of those games, especially when you play them twice, that are division rival. They're going to want to mess up your season. You have to be aware of them, but I still think the Saints should be able to beat them both times.
Did the thought cross your mind when the Saints were up 28-0? You know what? We can't be like Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. Did you last week when they were up 20-0, I think, was it Collinsworth or Michaels who said,
yes,
all they got to do is kick a field goal and then you got him right. Tom Brady's got you right where he wants you. So I love that national media still takes shots at the Falcons. Like, we don't have to do the work as Saints fans anymore, or as former players. We don't have to do the work anymore because the Falcons are such a punchline that everybody's on the Falcon hate train now. I love it.
Yeah, the Falcons wish that that narrative would go away, like Jameis wishes the eating the W's. Oh, wait, that's still around. Sorry about that.
Wouldn't that be like the Atlanta Falcons coming out and joking about blowing a 28-3 lead? Like, why would you do that?
Exactly. Well, Justin, where are we on Twitter?
At Dundad Podcast.
At Dundad Podcast. Check us out on Twitter. Please subscribe. We're on all the platforms where podcasts are relevant, from iTunes to Podbean to Stitcher to Spotify to Google+, all that stuff. But that was a fun podcast. Great win by the New Orleans Saints, taking the driver's seat in the NFC with Seattle losing as well and Green Bay kind of looking spotty at times this year. It'll be an interesting second half of the season. It all begins with the Niners coming to the Superdome on Sunday. For Justin Thomas and my partner Scott Shanle, I'm merely Mike Nabors. Please subscribe to our podcast, and we'll talk to you next week.